Everyone to take the word.
All right, we are live. Good evening, everybody. I'm gonna bring up the slides to walk through, make it a little more visually interesting. All right, it is 5:35 p.m. For our roll, we have Charlie, Sam, Juanita, Joe, and David. So we do have a quorum of 5.
Thank you.
I'm happy to have Michelle here from our counsel's office. And then we've got a member of the public joining us. How are you? And our staff, so Lynette, Will, and myself. And I'll save the big reveal for our auditor in a moment. Mr. Chairman, no comments were received ahead of time. Did you have any comments? No? All right, perfect. I just asked that we move up the report to the audit committee up to before our annual. Teresa, the floor is
All
yours.
right, great, thank you very much. Hello, my name is Teresa Ellis. I'm from the Bonanzio Group, and I was your audit supervisor on this year's engagement. In front of you today, you will see a PowerPoint that I have printed out for you, as well as the financial statements and the required communications letter. I'm here today to go over a summarized version of the audit results and answer any questions that you may have. First, I'd like to thank Sean and Lynette and the rest of their staff for all their assistance during the audit. They're very responsive to our requests, and we're well prepared. There are 2 deliverables in front of you. The first is your financial statement, and the second is your required communications letter. The first thing I'm going to go over is your required communications letter. That's slide 3. During fiscal year, the land bank did not adopt any new significant accounting policies, and there were no transactions for which there was a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus of all significant transactions have been recognized in the proper period. And the most sensitive accounting estimates were recorded in the financial statements were the acquisition values of donated property, which is based upon assessed value of the properties received, and market value of property held for resale, which is based upon past sales prices of properties. All estimates were evaluated and considered reasonable. Next slide 4, there were no significant difficulties in performing the audit or dealing with management. There were no disagreements with management, and we were not aware that management consulted with other accountants. Our discussion with management were in the normal course of our professional relationship, and our responses were not a condition of our retention. On pages 1 and 2 of your financial statements in slide 5, the land bank's annual audit of the financial statements include the independent auditor's opinion of the financial statements. We're issuing an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. An unmodified opinion is the highest level of assurance an auditor can give you that these financial statements are, in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. So a management's responsibility, your responsibility is for the preparation and the fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance to accounting principles generally accepted in the United States, while our responsibility as your auditors is to express opinion on these financial statements based on our audit. Our audit involves performing procedures to obtain audit evidence about the amounts and the disclosures in the financial statements, and we perform transaction testing over these internal controls, as well as transaction testing substantively over accounts receivable, payable, cash, debt, etc. Moving on to slide 6. As far as overview of your financial statements, I'm going to briefly go over this, the highlights. The net position as of December 31st, 2024 was approximately $4.9 million. The change in net position was a decrease of approximately $653,000 compared to prior year's net position of $5.6. Starting with the statement of net position as of December 31st, 2024, again, this is found on page 7 of your financials. The property held for resale value was approximately $1.56 million, a decrease of approximately $30,000 compared to last year's $1.59 million. Part of the decrease is due to an adjustment made in fiscal year 24 to reduce inventory value, and this was done in discussion with and working with management of the land bank to ensure properties were not overvalued and producing a large loss once they are sold. Your grants receivable in fiscal year 24 was approximately $1,027,000 compared to prior year's $2.5 million, a decrease in approximately $1.5 million. The grants receivable decrease is due to the grant terms ending with the CARES grant. The CARES grant was fully expended in fiscal year 23 and had a $592,000 grant receivable balance in prior year compared to this year's balance of 0. The Land Bank Initiative grant, phase 2 grant, Receivable also had a decrease of 1 million. Again, this is also due to the credit terms coming to an end. Moving on to the next slide, page 8 of the financial statements. This is your statement of revenue expenses and changes in net position. The change in net position was again a decrease of 653,000 approximately. The change was due to sales of properties for fiscal year 24. There were 326,900, which dropped approximately 356,000 compared to prior year. The contributions of donated properties decreased approximately 651,000 compared to prior year. And the Land Bank Initiative Phase 2 revenue increased approximately 1,014,000 compared to prior year. Again, your CARES Act revenue decreased approximately 937 due to that grant ending. Lastly, the cost of sales decreased approximately 1.2 million. Moving on to slide 8, pages 15 and 16 of the financial statements. This is your last deliverable that is included in your basic financial statements. This is the Government Auditing Standards Report. This report requires us to gain an understanding and report of your internal controls over financial reporting. We noted no material weakness or significant deficiencies in the financial reporting over internal controls. The second part of the report is your compliance with laws, regulations, and grant contracts. That non-compliance could lead to a material financial statement impact. We noted no compliance in the financial statements over internal controls. So to conclude, this is a very high level review again of your audit results. I want to thank Sean and Lynette and the rest of their team for their assistance throughout the audit, and I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, when you write there's no significant difficulties, is there any room for improvement in our systems or processes?
I didn't really come across any issues that deemed to have a management letter comment, so I would say no.
Okay.
One small question I have, and this is really splitting hairs here, but in the past, we've had discussions with Bonadio about properly, measuring the value of the property we receive.
Yes.
And then for our donated property, the acquisition value of donated property based upon the assessed value of property received, our market value held for resale based on the past sales prices, just a
Yes.
slight difference there.
Yes.
And I know it's, we're taking it in, my assumption is that, that assessed value upon receiving the property is likely higher than what the market value is after we've held it for resale. As we've discussed over the years, right? Property that the assessed value is maybe 50,000 is really, the actual market value is often much lower. I think we, at one point, were at half and maybe even discussed 30% what the actual value is. Just sort of just thinking openly here, is
Well,
there?
we did decrease it to 50%.
Okay,
So
yeah,
the issue is, should we do it more? Is
right,
that what you're saying, yeah.
right. Should those two valuations held for resale and acquisition be the same, or do you think there's values that have them slightly different?
I think they should be considered slightly different because
Yeah.
the first is the intake and then the second is really the improvements that are done upon these properties, which then you would then assess the market to that. I'm not sure of the timeline of how often it's being reviewed.
Right.
If it's done at year end or, maybe when properties are actually going up for sale would be a great time to also relook at your inventory. That's all I really have to add.
I think we're talking about that, so in doing this year's annual report and trying to take the performance measurements that the board has adopted and put objective numbers behind those. And I'll walk you through that in my report. One of the elements was the total amount of assessed value return, but we enter that assessed value at the time we acquire it. So we don't update it. So we've held something for 10 years. It's the assessed value at the time it was acquired. We're not going in at closing to see what that is, because in terms of overall impact of them, as the market changes, we're not necessarily getting that. And I think that we could, and it would be more accurate. I don't know if it would affect anything on the financial side of things because we record the asset at time of acquisition.
Yeah, I think it's splitting hairs, but, I do wonder if, there's a way to get even more accurate. But, at the end of the day, it's still the nature of the business is that some of these properties are going to come in and then go out the door at a loss from the paper value that it came in at. So it's just the nature of the business with vacant and deteriorated properties,
Yeah, I think if we're a profit-making entity,
right?
they would be a bigger concern, you know, in our ability to borrow or, you know, look at our balance sheet and what the net worth of the organization is, but, you know, until maybe we're doing that, and then even that, I don't necessarily think, you know, would be a huge swing, but we're always thinking about these things too, so, yeah.
Thank you.
So we're supposed to have a motion to accept the audit.
We do.
Do I have a motion?
So
Second? Second. Mark, okay. All those in favor of accepting the audit, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Resolution accepted, audit accepted. Thank you for being,
Thank you.
thinking you're so clean.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, we'll come back
Now we'll
in.
go back up to the annual actions. This is the re-election of officers and things, so go ahead, Sean.
So we have before you Resolution 5, consider resolution confirming officer appointments. We did have Mr. LaCivita step away from the board who held the position of vice chair. I don't know if anybody's looking to fill that role or change an officer position. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you have any thoughts or recommendations on the matter?
I'm looking for volunteers who want to be vice president.
Does our secretary want to step up at all?
Sure. But then you gotta find a secretary.
I think that, you want to be secretary?
I'll be secretary.
Perfect.
All right.
Everybody else? Hmm? Okay.
All right.
No one's vying for the secretary spot, okay.
Well, you said sure already.
I know Natisha's not here, but anybody,
She's the treasurer, right?
right.
Yeah. Well, she's the numbers person anyway.
All right, well.
We gotta keep her there. We got a handle on everything.
It's all primary season.
So then our officer slate will be, and we'll update the resolution, will be Charlie as our chair, Joe as our secretary, Natisha as our treasurer, and Sam as vice chair.
Okay,
I just need a motion.
okay, motion?
I move.
Second? Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Resolution passed.
Okay, congratulations. We got you a vest last month, so enjoy that. Which I got your best right over there. Next one would be Resolution 6, consider a resolution confirming committee appointments. On the second page,
It says resolution 5.
Resolution 5, but with the audit, we're gonna just update the numbers, so,
Okay.
sorry, originally Resolution 5, now Resolution 6,
All right.
confirming committee appointments.
Okay.
I just for reference, I left Joe's name on there, but we struck that out and where he was. I believe that I don't know if anybody's looking to, again, make a change here, move to a different committee.
My only comments on the Human Resource Committee, and maybe this is coming up later in the conversation, but I would like to know more of the function of that committee beyond just reviewing, kind of just staff, compensation and any HR related issues. And I think that ties into like setting, like maybe it's a long-term planning conversation, not a human resource issue, but setting kind of goals and priorities to then base those evaluations off of.
Yeah, I think a lot of the, like on performance measurement would probably be a charge more of the governance committee. But I don't necessarily know that has a direct home. Michelle, any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I think you could, if you're going to kind of tie those metrics to people's compensation, maybe HR is the better home. If it's just overall metrics for the organization of, we want to accomplish, X, Y, Z in our 5-year plan, maybe it's governance or probably governance or maybe even finance. So I would say to the extent that it's, per your employment terms, here's your kind of metrics for this year. I think, yeah, it's an HR. Long-term goals may have a different different home.
We have this, the description of all the committees, right?
Yeah.
Then,
So here's the HR committee.
Yeah.
So it's mostly around policies, plans, and performance.
Right.
For
Truly
staff.
employment related
Yeah.
matters. Now, there may be times where staff metrics and organization metrics align because staff are the ones that are essentially implementing the long-range plans. But, kind of,
It's a good time to talk where those
Yeah.
long-range plans live.
right. Who is in kind of, in charge with Sean of setting the kind of five-year plan.
and that's usually, the executive committee on most boards, usually is the executive committee, which you're on, by the way, now. After today.
Great. And I do think the full board should be involved in those conversations. I just want to make sure if they are happening in a committee, and I would like to have some insight and kind of put my 2 cents in on that front if it is a committee task.
Mhm.
But if I just already volunteered for the executive committee, that might be where this lies.
Yeah, I think that the executive committee is in the hiring, firing. So I think if the HR committee had a performance issue, it would probably then move to the executive committee before the full board. Yeah. I don't know how, looking through the minutes, trying to find out when committees met, some of these committees hardly ever convene.
Well, we're so tiny.
Yeah. And some of it is just the way the state manages authorities.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have a governance committee, an audit committee, a finance committee, and these other pieces. And there's probably some of these that could roll, human resource committee could probably be dissolved and just handled by the executive committee. There are pieces like that could happen.
And that's usually, like I said, the majority of that happens on most boards.
Yeah.
At least the ones that I'm involved with. But
Yeah.
Because those are really sensitive things to HR stuff, it's really sensitive.
Well, maybe I have found my home on the executive committee then.
Everybody's got the handout that shows what committees you're on, so you might want to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Another thing I just bring up is I feel like it's been like an underutilized committee, but I don't think it's been used right. Necessarily the real estate development committee. Those are typically, like me and Joe met a couple times on larger projects, but for our smaller redevelopments, I feel like they should have been tied in to that committee, and I'd ask for anyone who's interested, who wants to be on it. I think that's a good spot to kind of talk about just how we are developing projects and kind of our current status of projects. Happy to do it single-handedly, but I think it should be meeting probably more often.
Anybody want to serve on the committee? I'll automatically be on it.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 people.
And just to give you some as taking a step, of looking at this. So doing our annual updates, so there's committees of the board, that's the executive committee, and then the committees of the corporation, which are all the ones that regularly meet. That real estate committee and the underserved community are other committees of the board that the board established by resolution.
Right.
Usually for a
in the beginning,
specific
right.
purpose, to come and go, easily dissolved, whereas the ones in the bylaws are persistent until the bylaws are amended.
Well, and I was gonna mention something around that, because I'm on the underserved committee. And part of me wanting to be on that is about real estate,
Okay.
in the underserved communities, having those topics and so forth. But I think they all blend together anyway.
Yeah. I think, on the underserved communities committee, we have the equitable purchasing policy, more like framework that we've gone over, and we've already, all those elements are in practice. And so whether we want to formally put it into the form of a policy or just maintain it as a framework, it's working for us as a framework. we've talked about that, and Shelby, who's in Guatemala right now, she had a student trip, an opportunity to go to Guatemala, so she's out of town. But she's going to be working directly with the Underserved Communities Committee. And one of the things that I've asked her to take a look at is considering, our ability to do outreach correctly. And I say this to the team all the time, it's like, and it was a little bit of my response to what's happening, at a larger level with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some of that has to be just like an acknowledgement that our networks are imperfect. And so you can't rely on me and my network to get word and information out correctly, and to have that come back and forth. And I think we're going to look to the Underserved Communities Committee to help make sure that our network is as complete as it can be. So I know that's one place for that to go. On the real estate development piece, like you said, we got together on a couple of projects just to kick things around. We can certainly do that. I mean, we have the rehabs that are coming along, and to get some input on what those numbers look like. And Joe and I started talking about some numbers on redevelopment projects, and Charlie, actually, even in our your visits today with a couple of folks, we talked about some of those numbers, and so we're trying to kick that around.
Well, the flip the block is a natural one to talk about.
Right.
That's the one that we control. All the other ones is, the guys from New Jersey kind of thing, But,
No, and I think it's a good forum to do that. We haven't met a lot, but it's it doesn't really fit neatly into any other kind of committee meetings.
I think the challenge I have as your executive director is, we've done the required pieces for the state in terms of managing the authority. We have a mission statement, we have performance measurements, but we don't really have a guiding plan that says this is where we're going. We generally know, philosophically what we're trying to accomplish. My suggestion is, it's been on my radar is, do we go through a strategic planning process? I'm a planner, so I'm going to say yes. I have an inherent interest in developing plans and using those to guide us in our actions. I think that may help us. I don't know. Some people are a little.
I've spoken to, I think that's the route to go, because I do think it's not fair to you or staff to be based off of kind of how we've been operating, because there was a flood of properties for years, right? And that's not here anymore. So you can't be operating under those conditions. And you're trying to pivot now, but to what? And we have those conversations, but how many homes are you trying to rehab this year ourselves? How many first-time home buyers are you trying to get in? What are those key indicators, and then how are we getting there? And that's kind of what I was talking to you about the past couple of days. Just how do we formalize the vision, I guess.
Right, because even when we get calls, and we talked about, I've talked about this with Elizabeth, in community engagement. I was like, we get a lot of calls to come out and do something, but we have to, sit back and say, is it congruent with our mission and our work? Or is somebody just, here's the land bank, and says they probably show up and have a booth somewhere. But if it's not really driving toward what we're doing, then maybe we do it for goodwill, and that's why we do it. But if it's, if you can't sort of align it with the mission of the organization or our goals or objectives, I think that we have to make some of those decisions and say, thanks, but it's not really the right fit for us right now. And then take a different direction.
But I would say to you and Charles, because you two are driving the ship, if you will, right? I do think people run from strategic planning, but I agree with you. I think sometimes it's good to know where you're going from that, to have a roadmap. But I think people run from it because it seems like it's a waste of time. And so I've heard you talk about community outreach. So strategic plan should be really meat and potato of stuff that we really want to work on, if that makes sense, right? Instead of, people always talk about, well, this is a perfect time to do team building. Well, we work well together.
Yeah.
Why should we do team building? You know what I mean? Let's really dive into stuff that is meaningful, if that makes sense.
And I don't have as many years of planning as you do, but I got a couple under my belt, and I can tell you.
You only have two more than me. All right.
I can tell you, there's plenty of terrible strategic plans that you just pay a consultant to do.
Right.
They're there and then they never get looked at again.
Right, exactly.
That's, I don't think that's the intent of what Sean's saying. It's something, it doesn't have to be 100 pages. You just give us like 3 good pages of what we're trying to do and go from there.
That's right.
Nita?
My experience has been that, the city of Albany gives people a hard time when it comes to, you can get like inside of your property that the city doesn't see. You can get a handyman that's really good to do your work. But when it comes to the outside of your property, the city of Albany holds a lot of people up. Okay, because I've had experience with the city of Albany. I'm in the 12th ward and it's a big ward. And I get a lot of complaints about the city of Albany. In fact, the city of Albany likes to dictate to you what engineer or contractor you get. Okay, there's been property that I've been aware of that the engineer or the contractor was not in the city of Albany, but in the state of New York, Albany. And the city of Albany said, oh no, you've got to have a city of Albany contract.
That might be like with the licensed electricians or plumbers, there's certain professionals that have a license that have to work in the city. So.
No, I've had experiences with them. I've had experience with my son-in-law was doing something to his roof. He started Friday evening doing something to his roof in the garage. Monday morning, the city of Albany was out with a stop work order. Okay, it's good that I have a good relationship with the ward leader. And the ward leader, I gave him a call, and within a half an hour, by 12 o'clock Monday afternoon, we had it resolved. Okay, and that's not the only complaints that I've gotten with people with rehabbing or buying property. When the city of Albany sees them, they put a stop order, and you gotta get who they want you to have.
I mean, it's tough. If you don't know what you're doing, I mean, I got a house right next to me that was just sold. New family moved in. Less than a month later, they moved out because they didn't realize what they were getting into. They didn't realize the costs, and now they're trying to sell it just to make their money back. And that's not even bringing in the city and then, permitting requirements to put new stairs in or a new railing. Maybe this is a spot where we can be more helpful because it's not easy. And for as much as the city's trying to do, like, they're slammed too. I mean, there's not staff to go around, so sometimes I'm sure that they're not given the time just because they're getting pulled in 100 directions. Maybe we could help fill a gap there.
See, and what the city didn't know was that my son-in-law is a station engineer for OGS, the city of Albany, so actually he knew what he was doing.
Well, I think that's valuable input, and we'll try to, make good use of that. I just want to circle back on the committees before we get too far ahead of ourselves. The only thing I would ask is that we do have an imbalance on the enforcement committee. We actually have a quorum of the board on the enforcement committee. So that's Charlie, Natisha, Sam, Mark, and Joe. Charlie, Natisha, Sam, Mark. Yep. So I don't know if anybody wants to step away from one of those. I don't know if Natisha, I don't want to speak for her, she's not here. Natisha and Sam, you have the most number of committees. I didn't know if you wanted to step back from one of those.
Yeah, that's the one committee I think I'm sort of uniquely
Yeah, I was gonna say.
qualified to be on and probably should be on out of all of them. I'm happy to drop almost every other one, besides that one. Sorry.
What are you enforcing?
We're enforcing, so the terms of sale, when we sell a property, to somebody. And, given what I do for the city and my close relationship with buildings and codes, it's probably smart for me to be on that committee.
Which one do you have the least people on?
Oh, great question.
Probably,
I think everything is pretty much balanced, 3 or 4 members.
probably just development with Joe departing.
Yeah,
I think that was headed down to 2, because now it's just
Cause I could
Anthony and
jump
the other
into
Joe.
development.
okay.
Good.
Then Mark, do you want to come off enforcement and real estate, and then just into real estate development?
Right.
Okay. That would help us fix that and then rebalance that real estate group. And that would help with what you're interested and concerned is with the real estate development piece.
Right. I'm just being on the 2 stepchildren committees.
You're on audit too, so,
Right, no, I'm just.
yeah. All right.
I'm okay.
Any other changes to the committees? Otherwise, we just need a motion and a second.
I move. And a second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, resolution passed.
Thank you, that goes ahead. Resolution number 6 will now be resolution number 7, just affirming the operating policies of the land bank. There are no changes to any of our policies this year, so we're just asking to reaffirm the policies that currently exist so we can move them ahead. We will provide copies of the procurement policy, internal control, and disposition policy up to the authority's budget office. There are some that we have to do, so those are specifically called out here by Michelle.
Yes, these are policies that by their terms have to be reapproved every year. So, as Sean said, there's no changes, but they're subject to annual approval. So the ones that are posted on the website are in fact the current policies.
We talked about an amendment to this disposition policy for like disposing of office property, but we don't have anything coming up anytime soon, and rather than hold this up, we can address that later.
Yeah, you can always make interim changes during the year to any of these as well.
So I will make that motion.
All right. And we need a second.
A second.
Joe.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, resolution passed.
And resolution number 7 originally, now resolution number 8 will just be a resolution approving our fiscal year ABO report. Most of it is everything in the audit that's in here, but there are 2 pieces I just want to just give you a highlight of. In the past, we've just pointed to the annual report, and we're still doing the design and layout of that, but there are 2 elements that I'm going to just submit separately. One is our operations and accomplishments report, with just a narrative about what we're doing. And so and these are statutory out of the state law. So we describe the operations, we put in our cluster projects, the timelines that we have on our website, we brought them in as part of that report. So we have a fixed point status of time, our flip the block project, and then the material change in the authority's operations and programs is that you have a new executive director. So we'll put that in there,
Where's Henry Johnson? We do not know.
right here.
Okay, good.
And these graphics are on our website, and as the project advances, we can update this really quickly, and it actually updates the thing entirely. The 2024 performance measures in the past, we just pointed to the mission and performance measures generally, but this is our shift to putting more numbers and data with what we're doing, and we'll have more on this, but as an interim step, these are the pieces based on what we have readily accessible and ready to report on. But the first was that we have fostering opportunities to create new construction of affordable housing. We have our 4 affordable housing units, that's 40, 52nd Avenue that were done last year. We had 6 qualified affordable home buyer applicants, and we sold 1 unit to an affordable home buyer applicant. The second piece, create more opportunities for first-time home buyers. We approved 6 qualified first-time home buyer applicants, and we sold 1 unit. You'll notice those numbers are the same because they're the same person as affordable and first-time. We talked about, we had to maximize organizational efficiency and effectiveness. What we'd like to do moving forward is be able to report on how we're handling issues like code violations and the placards that exist on buildings, but we're still just trying to develop the right process for that information. But what we're able to do is just go in and look at the number of applications that the land bank took in last year. So we had 103 that we received and reviewed. This is that number I talked about earlier, about $1.1 million in assessed value that was put back to local tax rolls through the sale of properties. Our key partnerships, we have 5 program partners. So it doesn't necessarily mean that money is changing hands, but we have some sort of relationship and development with them. And we continue to advance our 3 co-development projects and our funding opportunities. Our 2 major funding partners are Albany County and New York State. And so we were awarded $450,000 in funding from those partners. We also had another $1.9 million from the LBI Phase 2. That was actually an 18-month contract, 23 to 24. So these are going to be the performance measures that we report back to the state.
Just one small note on the applications number.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a great number. We want lots of applications, but it is significantly higher than the properties sold number. And obviously, there's a great story there. One that, is very complicated. There's lots of nuance.
Yes.
But on a very simple level like this, it may raise some questions that are, we can certainly explain. But
yeah,
something like this, just some thought there to maybe adding some nuance and explanation, in the future. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what we're going to do, so this same information will appear in the form of the annual report that we flesh out and develop. We've done that in the past in-house, but we want to get another set of eyes on that to make sure that the message is appropriate. So we'll tag that as a way. This actually came from the first look that we had by Mike Martin, who is with the Community Loan Fund, who we've engaged a little bit on some PR work. And he was like, hopefully you approved 100% of the applications you received. I said, no. But, we can tell you how many applications did come in to give you a sense as to the volume of work the staff has handled.
Right, because we don't want the public to get the perception that all we do is turn people away.
Right, a 6% chance of being successful.
Right. Yeah, and obviously there's more to it than that. There's a lot of folks out there applying who really, sort of, to Joe's point, start on a project, have $1 in a dream, and quickly find out that $1 in a dream isn't enough to rehab a vacant building. So
that's right.
Just,
Mm-hmm.
things are in storytelling.
Which goes along with your whole outreach. It's all about messaging. My question is, and maybe you mentioned this already, do we get feedback from the owners?
We've started to. So what you'll see in the annual report this year is that Elizabeth had gone out and done some outreach to some folks that had purchased and to get their story.
Okay.
So we do have some feedback there, and which is really insightful for what we're working on. The good news is that, from what we're doing, people are very pleased with how we're working with them and handling their transactions. There might be some other frustrations with other parties involved in the process that sometimes creeps onto us. And so we just, have to continue to just help people and work with people. I care less about trying to make sure that somebody clearly understands it's not our fault. I'm more concerned with solving the problem. We had it was a slower process of getting one of our home buyers' funds released from their bank. And they thought that was us, because we have bank in our name, and it wasn't, but it was, one of our partners. And so we stepped in to help facilitate a faster review of the project progress to get those monies released. So I think that, like I said, not concerned about making sure that our buyer knew it's not our problem, but our buyer knew that where they bring an issue to us, we're here to help out.
I also, if I can add to that, the biggest piece too, who do they go to complain to, right? Majority of it, they go to elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be good to make sure that elected officials know about the process. And I think some of them do, but I know some of them don't.
I've only heard from one person this year, and it was on that confusion between the land bank and the money bank. So, yeah. And I didn't hear back after I had reached out and just said, here's what happened. We are stepping in to make sure it gets solved.
Okay, so that takes care of the annual section. How about the review and approval of prior meetings?
We just need a motion and a second on the ABO.
Oh, the ABO, yeah, motion.
I'll move.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Resolution accepted and passed.
All right, annual actions are out of the way.
Okay, now back to the mundane stuff like the minutes from last month. We've
Those are in
seen
your
those.
packet.
Anybody have any additions, corrections, changes? Do I have a motion to accept them? Second?
I'll second, Mark.
Okay. Any changes we want to make to the minutes of last month? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, signify by saying aye. Opposed, abstained, minutes accepted.
I just want to thank the staff for filling in for me last month while I was on school break with the kiddos. 18 hours of driving to Florida overnight. It's a lot of fun. But
Are we having fun?
I did see a rocket launch,
Oh, okay.
so which is pretty neat, you know, as far as way. It went up and then it looked like a beautiful launch, and then the cloud ceiling was super low, and it was gone. So,
you were gonna say it exploded.
no. I might, I don't know, yeah. No comments.
Okay, report of the executive director.
So this month, I did not provide you a written staff activity report because the audit is pretty much the staff activity report for this past month. This is a busy month of annual reporting. You know, I had a really successful session at the International Economic Development Council. They asked me to come down and talk about what land banks are doing in housing that economic developers need to know about and what can support them. And so we talked about what we're doing with Flip the Block and the missing middle, at least as it relates to the two-family houses that we're looking to build there. When I got back, I had a message asking me to come deliver a very similar presentation to the New York State Association of Community Development Financial Institutions, CDFI. So I'll be doing that Monday. About what's happening there, but overall, it's been it's been quite a month. So I do want to, I don't know where we would have put this, but we did send out to the board the confidential evaluation of board performance. And so I did want to bring this into my report here because while most everything was an agree or somewhat agree, there were some areas where I think it was, I don't believe, we have 4 responses out of the board. So we're not quite got everybody. So if you haven't completed this,
There's
please,
5 up there,
please do
5 responses. No, what,
4.
oh,
4.
I'm sorry.
And you can see it only takes you 2 minutes.
Do you have a hard copy or you have to go online and do it?
You have to go online. Yep, I have yours. I apologize. I did not get yours entered here. So I'll have to update this. I'll send out a full report of this, but yes.
Okay, I don't do business online. I've been hacked too much.
You know
So
what I
if
did?
you have a hard copy, I'll fill it
You
out
have a
now.
printer? I printed mine out, because I don't do it online either. I just printed the form
Mm-hmm.
and then just pop it in the mail to them.
Yeah. It was not as effective as,
My deep person blocks all of that,
Oh,
so,
okay.
we'll print a copy out and send it to you.
okay,
If you want to fill it out and send it back to us.
okay.
All right?
Okay.
So if I just want to just hang on to these somewhat disagree areas, they're on the question of board members comprehend their role and fiduciary responsibilities to hold themselves and each other to these principles. There was some disagreement there. The board has adopted policies and bylaws and practices for the effective governance and management of the operations of the authority and reviews these annually. Excuse the why there, we'll tweak that. The board sets clear and measurable performance goals for the authority. I think we had a good discussion about that, and we'll work on an RFP for a strategic plan to start keep that moving along. I think it's similar here, knowledgeable about the authority's programs and financial statements, exercise appropriate oversight of the CEO and other executive staff. I'm the only executive staff you have. And then identify areas most at risk to the authority. So if you have any thoughts on those pieces, and I'll share the final results of the survey out, I'd love to hear about it. It just helps us improve what we're doing. I'd like to strive for next year to be all in the orange, so it's gonna be, important, but I appreciate that, I appreciate the openness, about how you feel that the work is going and your engagement here, so.
I initiated weekly coffees with our executive director just because I didn't want to wait every month for things. So once a week is fine by me, not on the premises, so we can let our hair down. Right?
That's right, yeah, it's a wild time in the tea shop, so.
So,
Not to give up my anonymity, but I was some of the disagrees, and I'd kind of like to say why in the public forum. I think it kind of goes back to what we're talking about with just performance measures and goals. Like, we don't know, you don't know your goals. There's no way that we could know the goals and then actively be helping you to achieve them. And I think that's where a lot of, I don't think I was all those responses, but that's where some of those responses came from. It's nothing against your performance, staff's performance. You're doing a great job because we don't even know what's coming next month in terms of foreclosures, right? Like, we're trying to figure out who we are again.
Yeah.
But that's on us too. It's not on you guys to figure that out by yourself. So I'm not ashamed to say I could disagree with some of those items.
It's good to know, though. I think that's, that's helpful.
You don't have to be ashamed.
and I will say, I think, it's been a minute since we've done this, so if you want us to do another kind of like, here's how it all works together session, and here's what the kind of board's fiduciary duties and responsibilities are, and how the bylaws interact with the MPCL and the Land Bank Act and C3, we can do that presentation again for anyone who wants to sit in. I think honestly, we may have, the last time we did it was maybe before you were on the board.
It's been a little.
So it's been some time since we did that, if anyone wants to have us do that again.
Yeah, we may want to, I think we should, unless you all disagree, my thought would be we should do it, and then we should incorporate that into, January or February as part of the agenda. It's just to make sure you're all up to speed on things. When I was on the IDA, our attorney at the holiday time would do like a formal training session on exactly this, like just to make sure that we're all on the same page. We could do it that time too, maybe get a holiday dinner out of it.
There you go.
I don't know.
So, and if we're trying to do strategic planning, maybe that's a good segue to start off with what we're supposed to be doing and going into how we want to get there.
Yeah, well, why don't we do that? We'll work on the strategic planning idea for the next board meeting. And then as part of that, I think maybe as we kick off, if we were gonna go down that path and we kick that off, we have Michelle and the team come in and do that, or we just do it next month or the month after. I
So
don't think
what's our time frame before we lose you again?
Well, you'll still have Nicole, so one of us can certainly do that, that presentation whenever you guys want us to.
All right. We'll put on the list.
How long is the presentation?
We can keep it to like half
4
an
hours.
hour, an hour tops. Just keep it high level, nothing. Don't get too into the weeds.
Right.
Good. All right. Yeah, so why don't I pivot from that and let's talk about the development clusters to let you know where the project process is. We'll have some visuals for you here.
Sure. For the South End project, we had a neighborhood dinner this past month, the end of February. I think I mentioned it briefly at our last board meeting, is one of the community engagement activities we were doing. So they came up from downstate and presented their most updated. We have like really nice metal render or posters that have the most updated renderings now at this point up in our office if people want to see them. But we were able to present the most updated presentation for the South End cluster development to a good swath of neighbors probably around.
So the top line here, we had 70 lots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what is it at the moment? How many units or apartments? How many are owner occupied.
Yep, 62, so this is what was presented was just the rental aspect, update. So that was 62 properties, 166, units. And that would be a mix of, income levels as well as bedroom sizes. So there's actually, two buildings that are just 2 4-bedroom units, because that's what the community had been telling us, is they wanted more options for larger bedroom sizes for larger families. So they were able to present how they've taken the community's feedback into consideration.
And then the homeowners, how many is that?
So that'll be 10. That's still the plan. Their numbers are still very high. So there's, we're still working through how to get that funded, either by putting it in with the rental project, so you get that economy of scale and having the same general contractor, or while bedroom number will not be reduced, if there's a way to make it a little smaller, not necessarily, but they're going through some of those, just try to get some of the costs down.
I think what's significant is that this is the one that we've been working on the longest. We had the most lots. And we started with a big building on Stevens Street, like an apartment building, kind of like Project Equinox style building or Station 25. And the developers were actually, because of our input in the neighborhood, made it into a townhouse, like that, which is low-rise, 62 buildings. I'm surprised the developer would want to do that. You can't make as much money as just making one damn building, right? But the fact that they put it into this street level scale, I think if they build this out, it's really going to make a difference in the South End, And the whole thing about the 10 units of affordable ownership, you're never going to get a developer who makes money on tax credits to be interested in home ownership, which is why we're doing Flip the Block, because we're the only ones that don't have to make the numbers work on a home ownership thing. So anyway, that's my comment on this one, that it's the furthest along, but I'm happy to see these renderings, because this is really make a big difference on Stephen and Tunis and Third Avenue and that whole area there.
And it's mixed income, you said?
Yeah, so it's all affordable, but it's between, I think, 60 and 80% AMI, or 50 and 80% AMI, which is confusing to say. But basically, it's like a municipal employee would qualify.
Workforce housing.
Yes, exactly.
80% of AMI for a single person is about $62,000, $63,000. 66, all right, so it's up there a little bit more.
I just want to say good job to staff. I kind of snuck down there and sat in the back during the community meeting just to listen. And I'm always used to like a mixed bag of community meetings, but it was a very positive review.
I saw that, yeah. And having Elizabeth coordinated, we finally had a decent outreach. We filled the room. And I told her afterwards, I said, get the names of the people that showed up there, because, they could become allies, they could become idea people. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? The fact that they took the time to show up, And even though I wasn't there, I saw the picture of it, and the scale it was very participatory. It wasn't like the developers up there and we're just all sitting there listening to them.
They're all walking up and looking at it.
Yeah, that was very good.
Only thing I would say, not for next time, I think this project's been going on for so long, and we've been going to so many community meetings down there, that we assume everyone knows who the land bank is, what we're doing, why we're here. And I had someone sitting right in front of me who just had no idea what was going on. And was like kind of taking notes down. So just food for thought that you probably do have 85% of the people in there who know exactly what's happening.
I wonder if that, we did have not from a local member of the assembly, but from somewhere from downstate, a staffer from an assembly member was there. I wonder if that was who was taking notes. She was very interested.
I'm not sure.
I don't know, I got there a little late. I was able to get away from DC and get in to catch the tail end of it. And I know Elizabeth had some concerns about turnout, and I think that it was far and above what she was expecting.
Yeah,
I think she was worried that.
And of course, we're dealing with Joanne Moore, who is, the salt of the neighborhood, that's who you gotta start with, right? And so you get, and we were talking about how she was as happy to see us as we were to see her, because she needs support. She's trying to rally her troops as a neighborhood association, so one hand washes the other.
Yeah, and just two related pieces, and then we'll jump to the next project. The first is the South End, the Building Communities Workforce Development Grant that we had, the $20,000, I think we got back in 2019, and been a challenge to spend. I did send the final form of the grant contract to the Department of Labor. So the plan is that we're actually gonna contract SUNY Schenectady to do 2 classes of OSHA 10, which is a general industry training of, core competency for folks that wanna work in industry. It can also be somewhat transferable to construction, but we did a very general industry one. So that'll be happening, we believe in May. We're hoping to locate it down at the port, but just with activities at the port, we can't get the trailers down there. So we've got 2 other backup sites we're working on. Sam, I may reach out to you on one of them because it's at Jennings Landing, which I guess the port owns the bathroom facilities there. But it would be, so anyway, I'll.
Always fascinating to hear about.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by. Yeah, and then the other one is that Elizabeth is working with the Raddick Center for a cleanup around Earth Day in the South End too. So,
And let me know, because I'm also on the port, so we have property,
okay.
we have
Yeah.
a warehouse that we can let you use.
Oh, that'd be, yeah. Let me reach out to you. We'd love to do it at the port because there's just employers down there. We think that there's an opportunity. But if not, the Jennings Landing actually was really intriguing because of the high visibility from the highway. Some people might say, what's going on there? And then I think our other backup location is the Capital South Campus Center and bringing that training there, so. But,
Plus,
Mhm.
go ahead.
I was gonna ask, when do you visit these sites
Which sites?
that you're talking about, the South End sites?
We've been down to, we just have to, we were hoping to do it at the Port of Albany, but since that's not gonna work out, they had an alternative location, which would have been which is Jennings Landing. So we'll have to talk to the city, because I think it's the city's call on that. Then if not, we'll maybe talk to Global about some opportunities there.
I'm sure Global's got a nook and cranny for you, it's just for a trailer, right?
Yeah, we just need to be able to park the trailer. There's some space to set up, but you'll have to be able to allow 12 people, 12 students in and instructors, and we're ideally looking for access to a restroom during the day, which is why the Jennings Landing worked out, because of the bathrooms there, or Capital South Campus Center, because we can get inside to use the bathrooms.
And Juneteenth is June 14th, so if you guys want to have a table and present to the community, that's also could
Yeah.
work out.
Where's Juneteenth being held?
In the South End, we're gonna shut down South Pearl, starting from Madison to South Fair. So we're gonna have
Give
all
those-
those streets.
Bring those.
Because it used
Boards
to be
down.
in
Yeah,
Winter
for that.
Park.
Yeah, so we just have it on the South End, in the streets. A lot of people like it in the street festival, so. We did it last year, it was pretty successful.
So from Madison to South Ferry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
Move over to Henry Johnson Boulevard, Will?
No, not a ton of updates on this one. They are still working through, some brownfield issues on the main site. But they're continuing to work, through that. We still, meet up every 2 weeks to discuss, where they are. Just not a ton right now, but they actually are the only ones that have full planning board approval at this point, so.
Wow, so they might jump ahead.
I don't see anything moving on Henry Johnson. Now, that's my gateway to the city of Albany. And I at least come through there at least 4 or 5 times a week, and still,
Well, hold on, that's what's coming. That's what this project is about, just that whole corridor.
Yeah.
That's where they're gonna do this.
The permitting process is terribly long, and that's the nature of the beast. I think when developers come in, they expect this timeline, and Joe knows from the city of Goes and I know from the town of Colony, and we know collectively from the city of Albany, like the best laid plans to get development through on a schedule are usually scuttled real fast. There's just, it's hard to develop in an older community.
Cause all I hear is we're working on it,
Yeah.
but you don't see anything that's working.
Well, yeah, but you gotta do all the paperwork first, and then all hell can break loose, believe me. So before you get off, Henry Johnson, give the board how many units, how many owners, rentals?
Sure. So this one's about 60 rental units.
How many?
First, about 60 rental units.
60 rental units?
4 floors.
And how many buildings?
So yeah, there's the big main building that's proposed for
Gonna
the
be by the library.
There's,
By the library.
So we're on this side.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, the other side are proposed 5 townhomes,
Mhm.
which will be 3 units each.
Yeah,
And then they have some properties that they already have acquired, that the plan is to do more infill, similar to their,
yeah, and
Phase
how many
2.
ownership properties? is there?
no ownership for this one.
None at all?
No, but the benefit of this one would be more commercial and community informed commercial space on that first
We're doing
floor.
the big building, maybe it's 4 stories?
Yep.
Yeah, so the 3 stories are housing, the ground floor is micro business, right? Or Metropolitan Baptist Church, or whoever wants to have something,
Yeah,
community
they're
activity.
involved in it.
Yeah, yeah, so that's sort of the sell, and it's like what Equinox did, right, on their first floor.
Yeah.
And so, I just spout this out, anybody can argue with me, but I think that the developers do that so to the benefit of the community, because when we say, well, how much of the rent's gonna be there, they go, well, we don't care. Because it's not in their pro forma. They make the money on the tax credits on the thing. And so this is ideal for startup businesses, because you don't have an onerous rent from some nasty developer that you gotta have to deal with right from the get-go. And so, it's a great opportunity, and the corridor is a perfect place to do it, with all the cars going by all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, Ontario.
Ontario Street, so this is another 4-story, this is just 130 Ontario Street, and the 2 lots across the street on West Street. The plan is to acquire part of the road, actually, to make sure there's adequate parking for this. This is another one that's gonna be about 55 units. First floor is gonna have some commercial as well as a community hub space for local neighborhood-based organizations. We've been in contact with like refugee organizations, stuff like that. We're looking for either a small office space or a larger gathering place, so it's gonna be pretty it's gonna be a flexible space. Yep.
And if you're asking what happened to 135 Ontario and 260 Bradford, remember the board approved selling those to Pack Shoe for redevelopment.
Yeah, the other side of the street, the old Project Strive building.
That closed, I will be signing those closing documents tomorrow, I believe. I have to check my schedule, but I believe it's tomorrow. Then I go
This is
sign that.
really great,
Yeah.
because Patrick performed, he gets to the finish line.
Are we able to get any assistance from New York State Homes and Community Renewal?
We are, all these projects have some form of assistance from Homes and Community Renewal, either our land bank funds or financing programs. So we're all tied into them.
The estimated timeline for the approvals for those financings is what, over a year, right?
Well, South End's gonna close.
South End is looking good for the end of this year.
Okay.
The other 2, well, yes, so Henry Johnson would be next year at the earliest, and then Ontario Street's gonna be a 9% competitive tax, light tech application. So they'll apply in the fall of this year. Won't find out until probably spring of next year whether or not they get it, but many times these take 1 or 2 or sometimes 3.
Yeah, so even though we've got all the municipal approvals in place, it's still gonna be probably another year before it shovels to the ground.
Yeah, and we're trying to work to leverage any additional points along the way, so.
Yeah.
I will say like the South End, they're gonna go to the City of Albany Industrial Development Agency for some support. And, I did bring to them a project I did in Manans where the Industrial Development Agency was part of it. And we did a preliminary inducement to help get it additional points in the process, even though we didn't have to close on the project. Having that was beneficial. So I kicked that information over to the city to consider on the South End project. Because if they'll do a preliminary inducement, if they're favorable to the project and they do a preliminary inducement, that's pretty much the IDA support right there to add points onto that application without having to go through a full closing.
And for the talking about holding these properties all this time, the Ontario Street property is mothballed. I mean, that one is secure. It was the one across the street that we're getting rid of, that people were squatting in.
Yeah.
So we're getting rid of the headache and keeping the properly mothballed thing, which is the thing that's up there.
And is there any implication, I guess, with the is federal influence an issue or?
Not yet, we're waiting.
Yeah, right.
Here's my hope. So I mean, two things happened when I was in, a few things happened when I was in Washington. One is there's a lot of talk about what's happening federally. And, there's issues around trade and everything else, but I was not getting the sense that maybe we'll see a big hit in the housing space. My snarky approach to life is that I don't know if a developer who's in the White House is going to start cutting programs that benefit development. So we'll see how that shakes out. And it was so much so that one of the reasons I was able to get back to see I was able to make it to the South End dinner was with everything going on, there wasn't really much for us to advocate for on Capitol Hill with our members of Congress. And so I'll circle back with them when we have something more. But there was nothing that we would have to face down right away. If they, start cutting entitlements and, housing programs, we'll have to keep an eye out for that. And I'm sure we'll start to see something, but we don't have anything firm yet.
Worry about the things you can control.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at, the president's first administration and opportunity zones and what he did, generate, investment in building, through tax incentives and tax credit. I'm hopeful that programs like LIHTC will still remain, generally where they are. So.
And also the city of Albany will be getting a new leader. Does that stall us at all or?
No.
Through all the municipal approvals, so city's hands are out of it once the approval's been given.
Yeah.
At least until construction starts.
I mean, I don't think that'll affect us, any changes, so. Let me just, get you to flip the block, which is, I know Charlie's excited about that. The first piece of that is actually moved along, which is our rehab at 257 Second Street. You see on the left here, just a picture of the interior of the condition, or the interior condition of the kitchen. We've been leaking some of these interior sneak peeks on our social media to just get people to see what's going on. On the right is the exterior of the house as of a few weeks ago. If you drove by today, something will be missing. That red X is now gone. Yeah, so the city of Troy went out and said, we've not taken X's off of buildings and we're gonna, stabilize them and maybe we'll knock them down. But we've taken a red X off a building, we have a house ready to go to somebody. To a homeowner,
Yeah.
right? So,
That's in Albany?
that's in Albany, that's 257 Second Street. So.
This is part of the 17 lots, right?
Yes, this is actually on the map.
This is number 1 of 17.
Yeah, so
Going
one of
off the
17
line.
is done, so, certificate of occupancy is done, right, or, so everything, so the only thing they're doing now is exterior work, so we've got to clean up the front and the back, some landscaping in the back. We did add some lighting back there, so we have to be mindful about site security. They actually had that site was broken into during the work, and then somebody recently tried to open the back door, but they weren't successful, so we just have to,
And who's going to market that for homeowners?
we're gonna start doing that internally on a soft basis and reaching out to Affordable Housing Partnership.
Yeah, so we,
Sounds like it.
I've been working with,
but we
Christina?
didn't specify.
Yeah, so we've reached out to Affordable Housing Partnership, Albany Housing Authority, seeing if there's any Section 8
Mhm.
residents who are ready to buy, the Neighborhood Association president, Habitat for Humanity, all these
Who's the
organizations.
president of the neighborhood association?
Tabora,
Who?
Tabora Marcus. Tabora Marcus. Tabora.
And it's, what is it, Arbor Hill? maybe?
No, that would be West Hill.
This is West Hill. Oh, so it's
Yep.
come back from the dead. This is great. Okay.
Yep. And then the idea is so we're also trying to, we're also thinking about setting up some open houses around existing events that are happening that we might be tabling at. So we can actually kind of get the flow of traffic from those events to, some of our.
Yeah, so our thing of the 17 houses, which could be, at the worst case, 17 homeowners, the best case would be 17 homeowners and 10 rental units, or 27 units altogether. That's really what we want to do. Would, it's not going to, it's a little bit like the developers from out of town, but we're more in control. So it's piecemeal in the sense, that's why they don't want to do it, because you have to sell 2 houses, you have to sell 1 house. But I think that that's our mission, and to be able to say we're the only land bank in the country that 100% homeowners, brand new homeowner project would be a feather in our cap, to say nothing of the benefit to the 17 new homeowners, so that's what we're trying to do.
And then we have a more recent development in terms of an application going in.
Yeah, so it's been a grind, but we just need signatures, and I'm waiting on maybe 1 or 2 more items. But the most of the application to HCR and to CBC for the first 5 homes, first 5 single family homes is ready and will be ready to go. We're confident that the numbers we have are pretty close to what they're gonna be, if not lower, so we've padded a lot of those numbers for.
What's our ask?
2 points.
Put you on the spot.
Total development cost 2.7 and $1 million from the state, so.
It's a $1 million project in West Hill.
And what's the point of the sale? What are we gonna try to sell a house for?
I think that's still kind of up in the air. I think for 257, the idea is to sell it for 150, get the first mover on those blocks. And then still at an affordable cost for all of these. They have to be affordable to someone making 80%.
Right, you sort of back it in, you say, what can the market bear? Who are we trying to help? What PIT can they afford? And that'll tell you what the price is, it's sort of going backwards. But that's to get to the finish line with the mission that you're trying to do of getting people to own their own home.
And these are all great underserved community, stories.
Oh, yeah, no, we're gonna make, these are tremendous impacts, in terms of what we're doing. We want people to enjoy and love, my story is I want everybody to love the neighborhood the way I love mine. So we're doing that, but we're also doing I wish my house was this nice when I was a kid growing up. It was not.
And the other way we approach this as well is we're constantly looking to pick up property. In other words, things that we hear about, or that by some miracle, the county actually gives us something, or we have to go to auction and we get it. So we're not standing still. The 17 units is the base. And the idea is to keep doing more and more, be a joiner. We work with Arbor Hill Development with Arlene. She's working with the homeowner. So they say, well, we know a guy up the street, he wants to sell his house. Or we know this landlord who wants to get out, So it's sort of like guerrilla sleuthing and marketing, 20 feet at a time, 1 lot at a time. But it's a moving target, and it'll take us several years to do this. And by the time we get through with it, it'll be a lot more than what we think it's going to be, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll jump into reports of committees unless there's other questions there. We're trying to cram a month's worth of stuff into not keep you here all night, but reports of committees. We did the audit committee, finance committee, so the financials are in there, but we went through that. I think the high level points is to let you know that in February, this is the first time in a long time we were at operating profit. We weren't dipping into our reserves to cover operations. We're actually in a really good spot. Our liabilities, we're still carrying similar liabilities month to month, so it shows us that we have good control over what it takes to run the land bank, so I'm really pleased with that. Our profit and loss, same message. Revenue has been up. Our expenses have been on budget, and in really good shape. So no action needed on that, because it's just a report. The committee received that, and no questions or adjustments there.
Okay.
All right, we decided there was no action on the financial committee.
Correct.
Right, thank you. But there is one item, and that was a resolution regarding the approved financial institutions. One of the things that came up in the audit, and Teresa didn't cover it, but I'm happy to, is that during the end of last year, at M&T Bank, somebody inside the bank made a change to our account that turned off our collateralization. So it put almost $3 million at risk because it was no longer FDIC insured. I'd love to say I have a resolution to that, and it's still not resolved. So I'd like to be authorized to go to Pioneer Bank and open accounts with them. The plus side of that conversation was really productive. They're actually going to offer us 4%. We're not getting 4% now on our savings accounts.
I just moved to Pioneer Bank within the last year, and I like
We
them.
had that problem with M&T too, so
Yeah.
I'll move for that.
We've had a long relationship with M&T, but I don't know, it was a decision that was made, I was told by somebody in New Hampshire, and nobody here saw it. I don't know why, but I had a really great conversation with the Schenectady and the Troy land banks. They've been very happy with Pioneer. They're a local bank. We see some opportunities to engage them.
To say there's nothing to flip the block, the financing for flip the block.
Yep.
Right.
They were great with the Cahoes idea.
Yeah, so if you'll move that resolution through, I'll have a meeting set with Pioneer ASAP to start getting that account set
I'll
up.
move that resolution.
Second?
Yep, all those in favor? Dan, aye? Okay, Zoom, let's go.
Acquisition and disposition committee. The committee did meet on 2 items, but since that time, one applicant pulled or withdrew their application for, was it 5 lots, going down a very steep hill. And the other one was Cherry Hill, was interested in acquiring a lot that they've lost in the past. But that's not resolved. We need to know how much the county was owed at the time of foreclosure, and then we've also got our own time and effort into it too. So I think philosophically, when we talked about that in the committee, was where the party that lost the property, lost it in the past, to be able to acquire it back, they do need to make the county whole. And I think there's probably an expectation the land bank is also made whole. There shouldn't be an incentive to lose your property and not pay the cost of the carrying cost of your property to come back years later and pick it up for a discount price.
I agree with that.
Yep, that was one of the sins of the old auction, is that wasn't always captured after.
Good.
Enforcement and Compliance Committee, talk about 4 items here, 3 buyer requested actions, and then 1 staff requested action. I'll focus on the last 2. The first 2 are pretty routine. C was a late starter, actually had 98 Congress Street. The rear property had an opportunity to sell to the front property and consolidate those. They had held that and had not done what they said they were going to do, so they're actually in an enforcement situation with us. We negotiated with them and presented it to the Enforcement and Compliance Committee that they would submit to us $1,000 from their proceeds on the sale, and we would also require the new owner to merge the properties together, and for that we would take our enforcement and our interest away from that transaction. So I think that one's, I'm waiting to sign that paperwork, and that should close like this week or so. I think that's where we are with that one. That's pretty much done. And then 117 Dove Street, that was the the multi.
Math program,
Math program, yeah.
Capricorn Fortune.
Multi-skill apprenticeship program. That hasn't gone anywhere. They've been unresponsive. So we need to start, continuing to project our interest in those properties. And so we've got to start an enforcement process with them to let them know. that
Yeah,
they're
it's Dove
involved.
Street, we can sell
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Good, okay.
Last two pieces, if I could, I'm gonna skip because, I'll go to these last two, but one is executive session, but I just, on number 7, new business, I just wanted to, if you haven't followed our social media, one thing that in trying to like re-engage the community, we've been trying to develop some pieces, between pens and little, when we do a closing, we have a keychain that we put the keys on with our logo on it. We have a stress key that we but one thing that, we were trying to just communicate, like what we do. Elizabeth had found this young artist, Maddie Flint, who through our connections with the Historic Albany Foundation. And so she took some of our completed projects and painted them through her eyes. So that's the picture on the left there of 52nd Avenue, but we have some other pieces there from past years that we've got them scanned. So we've got a high quality scan. We're gonna get those framed into our office and we have the original pieces. But you'll start to see us making some use of that.
Are you giving them to the new homeowner, or are you gonna just keep them in the office?
We're keeping them in the office. Yeah. So.
No, the homeowner wants the house. I don't
Yeah.
need a sketch.
And it was more, we have, maybe we'll do something with number 48 when that closes, because she has been, very patient in the process and with things tripping up. So that was just what I want to share with you under new business. Usually new business is blank, but I felt like I should throw that in there. So back on the Human Resources Committee, if I could switch the order on these, the employee handbook, we talked about this in the HR committee, there's a number that's wrong on the accrual rate. So I'd just like to have a resolution to authorize me to finally amend that for good. Right now, it's just an erratum in the handbook that says that number is wrong, but we've been using the correct number in with our payroll provider.
Does that impact the, obviously, employees that were hired recently? They're gonna have that show up now as their current accrual. Is that gonna be clawed back?
No, they've been accruing at the rate that's indicated in the erratum to the handbook. So the right fix to this was that the total number of hours was right, but the amount that you earn per hour worked was wrong. So the top number was right, it was just the calculation number.
Right.
So the handbook had an erratum saying, they acknowledge that this number is correct, this number is wrong, this is the proper number, and that's the number payroll has been using. We uncovered that when, with Elizabeth being the last hire, we were just doing a review of accruals, making sure that everything was working right. We found out that there were some steps that the payroll provider needs us to take when we set somebody up that we were not aware of. And so when we went to fix that, we gave him that rate. He said, no, that's the wrong rate. We already told Amanda about this in the past. I believe it was Amanda, but it just never got updated into the handbook. So we did that. So that would be it. It doesn't affect anything. It just allows me to remove the erratum from the handbook and actually correct the rate.
Okay. Anything else?
I guess we have to move on that, right?
Move on that one, yeah.
You have a question?
No, I was just gonna say it's new math from the school district, but no, go ahead.
Second.
Is a motion and a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Resolution accepted.
Then the next one is a resolution regarding compensation and benefits. I'd like to just, if we could do this in an executive session, it's a little bit of discussion about, what I've been doing for the past year. So I think we need a motion to enter executive session.
Okay.
Okay. Discuss the employment of an employee.
All those in favor?
Yes.
All right, so we non-executive session people need to leave the
All
room.
right, so everybody
Turn this off or what?
Yep, I'm gonna shut that off in a moment, and then we'll be able to discuss. So,
Is there any business after the
Did
executive?
you enjoy your meeting?
I think,
Very nice, thank you.
yes, we do,
learned something.
there is the resolution here, which will need to pass out of executive committee.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
so
we can come out
Yeah,
and
we can come
then
out to pass.
I'll just notate for you who it was.
okay, yeah, we'll come out and.
Just in terms for I'm sorry, there's only one member of the public. Hi, the public.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if you want to stick around and wait for that, or,
What is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, and that's why I want to make sure that, you know, because I've been on a board where you've gone into executive session, and you wait for them to come out, and they never come back out, because they never did, there was nothing else, so. They do have one resolution, depending on the outcome of this session. But we'll open the door back up if
You want to
stick
hang
around
in
for
10
that.
more minutes, no more than that.
Great, I mean, I'd love to say something afterwards to anyone who is available, but I
Sure.
also,
Can you say it now?
Yeah?
all right, I
if
can
you
get
want,
outside.
whatever works.
So why you say now?
Say it now.
I have a background in housing and economic development. I run my own business in Albany called Albany Art Room. I'm at a point in my career and my life that I'm looking for how to engage in my community. I love Albany. I've heard amazing things about your organization. I've been volunteering at the South End Children's Cafe, and my daughter has been working there, and so I'm just, this is an organization I'm interested in. I don't know if you have opportunities for volunteers. I don't know if there are ways that an outsider can get involved, but just wanted to learn more, and seeing a board meeting is really helpful because I feel like you can learn a lot about how well an organization is functioning by watching this dynamic.
Yeah, yeah.
And
What do you think?
I think you guys are doing a good job. I've been on many boards, I've been at many board meetings of organizations I've worked for, and you're up there as one of the most competent seeming boards so far.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I have to say, the competition's pretty low, but you're doing great.
You have a business card?
I have a business card so I'm also an artist. I have my art business card. I don't have an Albany Art Room business card, but I have my own art business card.
What's your name? I'm sorry.
My name is Karen Shupak.
Hi, Karen.
You can take one of these and pass them around, and you'll see my art is also related to,
Thank you.
my artwork, which you can see if you want to, is on my
Thank you.
website that leads to, which is, it's about, inequities in our urban environments. So I'm sort of, this is my direction right now, and I'm just figuring out how I can get involved.
I'm gonna reach out to you because not related to land bank, just other roles.
You want to come take a pottery class?
I do want to.
That's always, because our pottery classes sell out literally in an hour, and every time I meet anyone, they're like, how do we get into those pottery classes?
No, I'm always interested in artists that have, have taken a look at
Is this your last one?
issues related to the built environment, especially about social issues.
Well, then I'd be happy to talk to you. And I think, as a follow-up, if you have time and interest, I'd be happy to meet with you or anyone in the staff to see if there's any way I can help.
Yeah.
But you guys can all think about that, and I will excuse myself so you can have your
No, and
Yeah.
meeting.
I know it's not the best use of everyone's time to come to these board meetings, but I just want to say thank you, because it does mean a lot to have someone come out and just want to learn more about it.
Yeah, the work you do is exactly like everything I read about, everything I make art about is totally overlapping with what you all are doing. And so that's where I want to,
Connect.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Yay.
So
Thanks
Have a good night,
for
Karen.
I think we
Come on, there's some
voted
pizza
on
over there
it,
too,
so,
grab a
Thank you.
slice.
Yes.
I'm gonna end the stream here because of just the way this is set up. It won't allow me to restart the stream in here, but we'll note in the minutes any actions taken. So anybody who's watching this and wants to know what happened, it'll be reflected in the minutes.
Awesome.
Shall I shut the door?
I'll shut it.